What if I told you that right now, today, as you are watching this, there is a move being made inside the federal government to take money away from people who survive on less than $1,000 a month, people who are disabled, people who are elderly, people who own almost nothing, people whose entire financial existence depends on a government check that would not even cover rent in the cheapest apartment in the cheapest town in America. And the way they are doing it is so clever, so buried in regulatory language, so tangled in bureaucratic terminology, that the people it hurts the most will never even understand what was done to them. They will just open their mail one day and discover their check is smaller. No real explanation, no clear reason. Just less money for someone who already has almost nothing. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not speculation. This is a real regulatory proposal moving through the Office of Management and Budget right now in 2026. And unless people understand what it is and push back against it, it will quietly become the new reality for hundreds of thousands of the most vulnerable Americans in the country. Today, I am going to decode exactly what is happening, who it targets, how much money people stand to lose, and what you can do about it. And then I am going to share something about Social Security disability benefits that could be worth tens of thousands of dollars to you, or someone in your family, a filing strategy, and an insurance requirement that almost nobody explains clearly and that catches people off guard every single day. The proposal targets SSI recipients. SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income. For anyone not familiar with this program, let me explain what it is and who depends on it. SSI is a needs-based program run by the Social Security Administration. It is important to understand that although the Social Security Administration manages SSI, the program is completely separate from traditional Social Security retirement and disability benefits. SSI does not come from the Social Security Trust Fund. It does not come from payroll taxes. It is funded entirely by general federal tax revenue. The program exists for one purpose only. It provides a small monthly payment to Americans who are either disabled or who are 65 years of age or older and who meet extremely rigorous financial requirements proving they have virtually no income and virtually no assets. The financial eligibility standards for SSI are almost impossibly strict. A single individual cannot possess more than $2,000 in total countable resources. That is everything: bank accounts, cash, investments, personal property beyond basic necessities. All of it combined cannot exceed $2,000. For a married couple, the ceiling is only marginally higher at $3,000. Income must be minimal. And the maximum monthly SSI payment in 2026 is $994. That number represents the absolute best case scenario. Many recipients receive less than that depending on other factors. $994 per month. In an economy where the average cost of a one-bedroom apartment rental exceeds that entire amount in the majority of housing markets across the country. In an economy where a single prescription medication can cost hundreds of dollars per month. In an economy where basic survival requires substantially more than what this program provides. The people receiving SSI are not gaming a system. They are not getting rich on government benefits. They are elderly Americans who spent their working years in low-wage jobs that left them with no pension and negligible Social Security retirement benefits. They are people with severe disabilities that prevent them from working and who never earned enough to qualify for adequate disability insurance benefits. They are people who, by every objective financial measure, have essentially nothing and cannot provide for themselves through any other means. The $994 monthly maximum is not a living. It is barely an existence. Because that $994 is insufficient for independent living anywhere in the United States, a staggering number of SSI recipients live with other people. Not by preference, but by mathematical necessity. They live with their adult children. They live with siblings. They live with grandchildren. They live with friends. They live with anyone willing to provide them a room, a couch, a corner of a home, because the alternative is homelessness or institutional care. These arrangements happen everywhere in America every single day. They happen because families refuse to abandon their most vulnerable members to the street. They happen because communities take care of their own. They happen because basic human decency persists, even when government policy does not adequately support it. Here's where the regulatory issue becomes urgent. Social Security has always maintained rules about how living arrangements affect SSI benefit calculations. When someone provides free housing to an SSI recipient, Social Security performs a calculation called in-kind, support, and maintenance. They determine what the space being provided would cost if rented on the open market. If a spare bedroom would rent for $300 per month, Social Security treats that as equivalent to $300 in income received by the SSI recipient and reduces their monthly payment accordingly. The person who already has nothing receives even less because someone cared enough to help them. The act of receiving compassion triggers a financial penalty. A couple of years ago, a regulation was enacted creating a specific exception to this penalty. The exception applied when the household providing shelter to an SSI recipient was itself receiving SNAP benefits, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly called food stamps. The logic was direct and humane. If a family is on food stamps, the government has already officially determined they are low income and struggling to meet their own basic needs. If despite their own poverty they choose to shelter someone on SSI who is even poorer than they are, the government should not punish the SSI recipient for receiving that help. Both households are in poverty. Reducing the benefit of the person with the least simply because they received help from someone with slightly more accomplishes nothing constructive. It only deepens misery. The proposal currently at the Office of Management and Budget seeks to eliminate that exception. If it goes through, SSI recipients living with households that receive food stamps will once again have the estimated value of their housing counted against their monthly benefit. A disabled man sleeping in his sister's spare bedroom, where his sister receives SNAP because she works a minimum wage job that does not cover her family's food costs, will have his $994 reduced. An elderly woman living on her grandson's couch where the grandson receives food stamps because he earns barely enough to keep the lights on will see her check shrink. The amounts vary based on the calculated market value of the living space and the specific formula applied, but reductions of $200 to $300 per month are entirely realistic. For someone whose total monthly income is $994, that is not a minor adjustment. That is a catastrophic loss that directly threatens their ability to afford food, medication, and other absolute necessities. This change is being pursued through regulatory rulemaking rather than legislation, which means it does not require a vote in Congress. It passes through administrative channels. It goes through the Office of Management and Budget. If it clears that office, it enters a formal process that includes a public comment period, during which citizens can submit written opinions supporting or opposing the change. That comment period is the primary opportunity for public resistance. But the comment period only functions as a meaningful check if people know it exists, understand what is being proposed, and participate. The regulatory language is deliberately technical. It discusses modifications to ISM calculation methodologies for recipients in SNAP participating households with reference to federal benefit rate offset formulas. It is not written to be understood by the people it affects. It is written to be understood by nobody except the small number of administrators and lawyers involved in the process. That impenetrability insulates the change from public scrutiny. Advocacy organizations, legal aid groups, and disability rights lawyers across the country are monitoring this proposal. When the public comment period opens, these organizations will mobilize to publicize it and help affected communities participate. Public comments matter. They create a record, they create political awareness, they can delay implementation. In some cases, they modify or block harmful rules, but they only work if people participate in significant numbers, and people can only participate if they know what is happening. This is why sharing information about changes like this matters so much. Every person who understands what is being proposed becomes a potential voice during the comment period, and a potential advocate for the people who cannot navigate these systems on their own. Beyond this immediate SSI concern, there are several other active threats to Social Security beneficiaries that require awareness. Continuing disability reviews are becoming a significant source of lost benefits. These reviews, abbreviated CDR, are periodic reassessments of whether someone currently receiving Social Security disability benefits still meets the program's medical criteria. Recent procedural changes have modified how these reviews are conducted, and disability advocates express serious concern that the new procedures will result in more people losing benefits, not because their conditions improved, but because the process has become harder to navigate successfully. If you receive a CDR notice, respond immediately and completely with thorough current medical documentation. If benefits are terminated after a review, you have the right to appeal, and in most situations, the right to continue receiving benefits during your appeal. But requesting continued payment during appeal typically requires action within 10 days of the notice, not 60. 10 days. That window is critically short and missing. It can mean months without income during a potentially lengthy appeal process. Scams targeting beneficiaries remain rampant and increasingly sophisticated. Any communication claiming your Social Security number has been suspended, that there is a warrant for your arrest, that benefits will be terminated unless you act immediately, or that payment by gift card or wire transfer is required, is criminal fraud without exception. Social Security never operates this way. End such communications immediately and report them. Now, I want to address a situation that affects millions of Americans and carries permanent financial consequences that people rarely understand until it is too late to change course. If you are around 62 years old and you have been unable to work for several years because of health problems, the question of whether to file for disability benefits or retirement benefits or both is one of the most consequential financial decisions you will face for the remainder of your life. The difference between handling this correctly and handling it incorrectly can easily amount to $400 or $500 or more per month, every month for the rest of your life. That adds up over 2 decades to a sum exceeding $100,000. And there is a specific insurance calculation and a specific filing technique that most people are never clearly told about, information that could be the key to unlocking the higher benefit amount. Social Security disability insurance benefits require you to satisfy 2 completely separate insurance tests. Both must be met before your medical condition is even evaluated. The first is general insured status, which means you have accumulated at least 40 work credits over your lifetime. This roughly translates to having worked and paid Social Security taxes for 10 years total at any point in your adult life. Most people who have held steady employment during any decade of their working lives meet this requirement. The second requirement is the one that creates problems for people with extended gaps in employment. You must be currently insured for disability, meaning you worked and paid Social Security taxes for at least 5 of the 10 years immediately before your disability began. If you have been out of the workforce for 6 or 8 or 10 years, this currently insured requirement becomes the decisive factor in whether disability benefits are even theoretically possible. The key to understanding your eligibility is a calculation called your date last insured, abbreviated as DLI. Your DLI is the precise calendar date on which your disability insurance coverage expires based on your individual work history. If you can demonstrate that your disabling condition began on or before your DLI, you satisfy the currently insured requirement, and your claim advances to medical evaluation where the severity of your condition will be assessed. If your disability began after your DLI, you simply do not have disability insurance coverage, and your claim is denied on that basis alone. No amount of medical evidence can overcome this. You could be completely and totally unable to perform any work of any kind. If your onset date falls after your DLI, disability benefits are not available to you. Period. This is an absolute administrative determination with no exceptions and no workarounds. For a person who is 62 years old and has not worked in 6 to 10 years, the DLI has almost certainly already passed. However, the exact date is specific to your individual earnings record and cannot be determined without having Social Security perform the calculation. It is absolutely essential that you ask Social Security to determine your precise DLI before making any assumptions or filing decisions. The date might be different from what you expect based on the specific timing and pattern of your most recent employment. Even a difference of a few months between when your DLI falls and when your disability began can determine whether you qualify or not. The financial stakes of this determination are enormous and permanent. Social Security disability benefits are calculated at your full retirement age benefit amount. This means if you are 62 and approved for disability, you receive the same monthly payment you would get at age 67, with zero reduction for age. Your benefit is not reduced because you are younger than full retirement age. It is paid in full. Retirement benefits claimed at age 62, by contrast, are permanently reduced by approximately 30% from the full retirement age amount. That reduction applies to every payment for the rest of your life. It never expires. It never reverses. Every cost of living adjustment you ever receive is calculated on the lower base amount. The gap between a full disability benefit and a reduced early retirement benefit could be $400 or $500 or $600 per month, or potentially even more, depending on your lifetime earnings history. Multiply that monthly difference by 12 months per year, and then by 20 or 25 years of benefit receipt, and you are looking at a cumulative difference that easily surpasses $100,000, or approaches $150,000 for people who live into their mid-80s. There is a filing strategy specifically designed for situations like this, and it carries zero risk. It is called a concurrent filing or a RIB-DIB claim. RIB means retirement insurance benefits. DIB means disability insurance benefits. When you file concurrently, you are simultaneously applying for both retirement and disability benefits. Your retirement claim is processed first because its requirements are simple. You are 62 and you have 40 credits. That is all that is needed. Reduced retirement benefits begin arriving within weeks, giving you immediate income while your disability claim goes through the much longer evaluation process. Disability determinations typically take several months for an initial decision, and can take considerably longer if denials are appealed. During the entire time your disability claim is being processed, you are receiving your retirement payments. You are not going without income. If your disability claim is ultimately approved, several things happen. Your benefit is retroactively recalculated at the full disability rate, which is your unreduced full retirement age amount. Social Security pays you the difference between what you actually received in reduced retirement benefits and what you should have received in full disability benefits for every month since your concurrent filing date. This back pay arrives as a lump sum. Going forward, your monthly payment remains at the higher full disability rate for as long as you remain disabled, which for most people in their 60s means permanently. If your disability claim is denied, absolutely nothing changes about your retirement benefits. They continue exactly as they were. You lose nothing by having attempted the disability claim. There is no penalty. There is no reduction. There is no negative consequence of any kind. You simply continue collecting your retirement benefit as if the disability claim never existed. The challenge for people whose DLI has already passed is that they must prove their disability began before that date. Social Security needs medical evidence establishing that your condition was already at a disabling level of severity on or before your DLI. Recent medical records showing you are currently disabled are not sufficient for this purpose. The question is not whether you are disabled today. It is whether you were disabled before your insurance expired. Documentation from the time period around and before your DLI is what matters. Doctor visit notes from those years, hospital records, specialist evaluations, diagnostic imaging, laboratory results, prescription records for disability-related medications, physical therapy records, any medical documentation from that earlier time period that demonstrates your condition had progressed to a severity that prevented you from performing substantial gainful activity. If you received consistent medical care throughout the years since you stopped working, those records may clearly establish a timeline showing your condition was disabling before your DLI. If there are major gaps in your medical treatment during the critical period, establishing that earlier onset date becomes more challenging, but not necessarily impossible if other circumstantial evidence exists. For married individuals, spousal benefits represent an additional strategic consideration. The governing principle is that if your own full retirement age benefit amount is less than 50% of your spouse's full retirement age benefit amount, You may qualify for a spousal supplement that brings your total monthly payment up to that 50% level. This is not automatic. Your spouse must have already filed for their own retirement benefits before spousal benefits on their record become accessible to you. If your spouse is still employed and plans to continue working without claiming benefits for several more years, spousal benefits on their record are unavailable to you in the interim regardless of your own age or filing status. Furthermore, spousal benefits claimed before your full retirement age are subject to permanent actuarial reduction, just as your own retirement benefits would be. The optimal claiming strategy for your household requires evaluating both spouses' records, both ages, health considerations, other income sources, and overall long-term financial projections. The environment facing Social Security beneficiaries in 2026 demands a level of personal advocacy and engagement that would not have been necessary in previous decades. Multiple programs are simultaneously under pressure. SSI rules are being modified to potentially reduce payments. Disability review procedures have been changed in ways that may increase terminations. Medicaid eligibility is being tightened in numerous states. SNAP benefits face potential cuts. Field office access has deteriorated with reduced staffing and longer wait times. Phone system wait times make reaching a Social Security representative an exercise in extraordinary patience. And criminal scam operations continue exploiting confused and frightened beneficiaries on a massive scale. In this environment, passivity is dangerous. Accepting whatever decision arrives in your mailbox without question is dangerous. Failing to respond promptly to correspondence from Social Security is dangerous. Missing deadlines is dangerous. Not understanding your appeal rights is dangerous. The system makes errors constantly. It relies on people not challenging those errors. A substantial percentage of adverse initial decisions are overturned at later levels of appeal, particularly at the administrative law judge hearing level. But appeals only happen when people file them. Benefits are only restored when people fight for them. Rights only protect you when you exercise them. You have the right to appeal any adverse decision about your benefits. You have the right to reconsideration. You have the right to a hearing before an administrative law judge. You have the right to review the evidence used to decide your case. You have the right to submit additional evidence. You have the right to representation during the process. And in most cases, you have the right to continue receiving benefits while your appeal is pending if you act within the required time frame. These rights are not decorative. They are functional tools designed to correct the errors that an imperfect system inevitably produces. Use them. Every person who successfully appeals an incorrect decision makes the system slightly more accountable. Every person who passively accepts an error makes it slightly easier for the next error to go unchallenged. Whether you are facing an SSI reduction, navigating the intersection of disability and retirement benefits at age 62, dealing with a continuing disability review, trying to understand a confusing letter, fighting a benefit termination, or simply trying to get someone at Social Security to answer the phone, the single most important thing you can do is refuse to be defeated by the complexity of the system. It is complex on purpose. It is confusing by design. But understanding it is possible and protecting yourself within it is achievable if you commit to staying informed, acting promptly, documenting everything, and exercising your rights when the system fails you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Social Secure USA.